If you ever wanted to know what it was like to have an evil counterpart of yourself that murdered everybody you've ever known, well, you might have gotten a glimpse of it at the end of Stranger Things Season 4, Part 1. The end of Stranger Things Season 4, Part 1 not only gives fans a sneak peek at what's to come, but also goes back and readdresses lingering plot threads pertaining to Eleven and the series as a whole. Fans learned at the end of the first installment of the show's fourth season that Henry Creel, aka Number 1, aka Vecna, has been behind many of the story's tragedies, all culminating in this Freddy Krueger-style stalking of different Hawkins residents. This video will break down what exactly Vecna's goals are and what led him to rising as the Mindflayer's 5-star general, so to speak. The terrifying part being that what has been released so far only shows phase 1 in his plan to eliminate humanity, shown by each of his murders, creating gates wherever they occur for the upside-down creatures to invade Hawkins, and subsequently, the rest of the planet. This entire season is building to a confrontation between Eleven and Vecna, and what's shown at the end of this first part confirms that. While most viewers could probably guess that the kindly orderly taking a shine to Eleven had some sort of connection to the season's big bad, it's really the extent of his malice that proves so shocking. When Eleven confronts One about what he did to all the kids in her flashback, he shows a stark refusal to employ any empathy whatsoever. He views them and humanity as a whole as pollutants to the natural order. Flies to be consumed by spiders, which goes back to his childhood when he grew fascinated. One also reveals that when he was known as Henry Creel, his mother caught on to what kind of person he was early on as the freakish incidents surrounding the Creel family begin to accelerate. And, much like how baby spiders consume their own mother, young Henry decides to eliminate his mom before she could cart him off to the loony bin and dealt the same fate to his sister for good measure. Only his father Victor was left alive by mere chance when Henry became too tired to continue with his sadistic familicide. Victor proved a convenient scapegoat as Brenner scooped up Henry to continue what Project MK Ultra had allowed him to get started on and truly expand his interests into cerebral powers. Henry then became known as One. Of course, One proved to be more trouble than he was worth and was eventually implanted with a chip that actively dampened his powers. Brenner kept One under his control before One came across young Eleven and began hatching a scheme. He focused on her frustration about her situation and her being targeted by the other children to manipulate her into removing his power-dampening chip. He eventually succeeded, leading to Eleven removing the chip and indirectly causing the massacre that followed. While One sees himself as a spider, he also began to see Eleven as one as well. He thinks the two of them are above humanity and were given their powers in order to cleanse the world of them. Elle's previous anger at Angela and other similar outbursts throughout the series show he might not be too far off. If anything, One/Vecna represents what Eleven is truly capable of if she were to give into her darker instincts. But Eleven, of course, rejects One's philosophy and realizes she has to get rid of him permanently. This is what leads to her breaking open the Upside Down, pulling One inside, and Brenner is left believing that she killed all of the other kids. This also explains why Brenner is so cold towards Eleven. While he was already manipulative and shady before this, it was the brutal deaths of all the children and staff that led him to believe an even more forceful approach needed to be taken to the Hawkins lab operation. It's no exaggeration to say that One played a heavy hand in her having such a traumatic upbringing simply by being who he was. While trapped in the hellish landscape of the Upside Down, One is struck by lightning repeatedly, and his transformation to Vecna begins as his body evolves to adapt to the different conditions of this alternate dimension. It's not explained how exactly he survived all these years, but between his body suddenly materializing in the Upside Down and his already supernatural powers, it's not too far of a stretch to imagine he has latent abilities that allowed him to evolve into this season's Giger-inspired Big Bad. The Upside Down also looked very different before the events of Season 1. Nancy and the other teens, when trapped there in Episode 7, discover that the place was not only a perfect replica of Hawkins, but a perfect replica that had been created in 1983 when Eleven opened a portal to the Upside Down for a second time. This is significant because for the longest time, it wasn't quite clear what the Upside Down even was. While now it's certain it existed well before being discovered by humans, this new information and what has been shown of Vecna's backstory suggests some sort of correlation that will be expounded upon in part 2. But it's not just 11 that has something to deal with. There are several storylines all coming to a head. Breaking down each, the Hawkins crew have been continuously dealing with Vecna this entire season and have been given the bulk of the mystery to unravel. Nancy's sudden possession at Vecna's hands makes for an incredibly tier setup for part 2, as we're not sure whether she's going to make it out, and she's the one who deduces his true identity using her reporter's intuition. Dustin, Steve, and the rest are okay for now, but each have gone through incredibly traumatic experiences throughout the series, so it's not set in stone which of them are. Eddie also has had his big hero moment that's been set up in the trailer where he's shredding it on his guitar. As it's been proven, music is Vecna's one weakness. It may prove to be what saves the day. In Russia, Joyce and Murray have finally reunited with Hopper. There's a hungry Demogorgon trapped behind several doors of impenetrable steel, but it's still looking murky about how they're going to escape the frigid Soviet Union. Considering 11 and the others are still in the dark about Hopper's survival, it's sure to be a tearful and emotional reunion when they find out he's still alive. Lastly, there's Mike's group going on their cross-country road trip search for 11. They just pinpointed her location thanks to Susie's help, and they will presumably be bringing her to Hawkins for the site of her second confrontation with Vecna. There's a bit of a love triangle being set up here as well between 11, Mike, and Will, who is implied to have discovered that he's gay and has been in love with Mike ever since they were kids. This awkward angst is something Stranger Things is known for, and even through all this dark murder mystery stuff and Stephen King influences, there are these coming-of-age themes that continuously drive the plot forward. Jonathan's also been reflecting on his relationship with Nancy, something that's produced the rekindling sparks between her and Steve, indicating yet another love triangle is being brought back up. But it's important to note that none of these characters have joined up together yet, so it's difficult to say where exactly each will end up by the season's end. And Argyle? Well, Argyle is Argyle, and he has a cute girlfriend now too. More importantly, the crux of the season is once again to be thrust upon 11's shoulders, what with Dr. Owens telling her point blank that the only way to help everybody was for her to get her powers back. And this will lead her to confront one again, now in his Vecna form and even more powerful than when he was a human. It's been hinted at from her aggressive outbursts against Angela in episode 2 and her alienation from Mike and the others that 11 is teetering off the edge. Part of her therapy in trying to regain her powers, while difficult, is making her literally confront the parts of her past she doesn't want to remember. And only through accepting all of herself will she finally attain the power necessary to be a superhero again, as it were. With 4 different storylines and such a large ensemble cast, Stranger Things Season 4 is proving itself the most ambitious thing the series has done so far. 11 is on the verge of coming back stronger than ever, Vecna has the kids right where he wants them, Hawkins is about to be invaded, the adults are in another country, and Mike is racing to find his girlfriend before it's too late. And with the origins of the main villain explained, the show can now move ahead for a bombastic, jaw-dropping season finale.